Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy.
What's up, everyone? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Nick Norris. Navy SEAL, 10 years active, 4 years reserve, commander. The commander. Love that. He founded Range SD in 2019 in San Diego, California. You can catch him on Instagram, and to take a deeper dive, go check out rangesd.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, man. We're going to go over a lot of stuff today because you're a very multifaceted guy. And I'm going to kick it off before even questions begin. I'm going to tell a short story about you for the viewers because a lot of them probably don't know this. So Nick and I were pretty close in buds in SEAL training. And I remember I got rolled, and so I was working Hell Week, and these instructors were talking about this dude who was just shit hot, this officer who was just killing it. And they mentioned your name. I'd never met you yet. And all of a sudden it was Wednesday, I believe, of Hell Week, and doing some pull-up competition, and you banged out 30 or 40 dead hang pull-ups, which nobody does that fresh starting out, buds. But the Wednesday night of Hell Week, I mean, that's insane. And so they're like, hey, we got to talk to him real quick. So the instructors call you over, and they're like, hey, heard you banged out 40 pull-ups, dead hang, Wednesday of Hell Week. And you're like, who ya? And they're like, what, do you want a cookie? Get out of here. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that is such BS. That dude did something that none of us standing here can do. And so I say this to say, like, you're a phenomenon. Amazing to watch that and to see that. It is just incredible. And so this is why the SEAL teams are so successful, because you have guys like Nick who are there who are just setting the standard, and everybody's trying to emulate that standard and accomplish and get to that standard. And for me, I've never done 40 dead hang pull-ups straight. So me trying makes me a better operator just by trying and using you as an example and a pinnacle to look at. That's why we're so successful, man. So I appreciate the effort that you put in then and what you've done with your career. And I want to dig into all that today.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm blushing over here. I don't know if I can still do them. My like right elbow doesn't straighten all the way, probably from doing pull-ups. But no, I was just, you know what? I mean, like, yeah, I think back, I think as a student, I was just committed to doing my job, right? So like in training, I just thought my job was to show up and, perform, do well. And then going into the SEAL teams and knowing my role as an officer, my job was to do that job well, not to be the best. I didn't go to sniper school or breacher school or comms or JTAC. I was an officer, so I went to boarding schools. But I knew that my role was to lead and to ensure that the unit that I was with was properly supported, and I was doing my job to coordinate and do all those things well. So, yeah, just try to do my job and do it well. And
there's no question that you did that, brother. So let's tie into that. So you did this career, 10 years active, 4 years reserve, and got out. I'm always fascinated to know what transition was like for you. So could you tap into that?
Sure. There wasn't as many resources back in like 20. I got off active duty in 2013, so the resources were sparse. Some of the programs were just getting off the ground, so I spent a lot of time just kind of kicking tires on my own. Going to some of the nonprofit events that were out there and meeting people that were on the outside, and then just I was lucky enough to meet a couple folks on the outside that helped guide me down the path that I ended up going down, which was into commercial real estate. But a lot of that stuff was just self-sourced, right? And I went back to school, got a graduate degree in real estate, and then ended up going into work in commercial brokerage. and kind of just trying to reinvent myself. I've spoke about this before, but I was super proud of being a SEAL, right? That's like the apex job. That's all I wanted to do my entire life. And when I decided to finally transition out, it was a tough decision for me. I didn't get out because I didn't like the SEAL teams. I got out because I endured some death in my family. I had lost my dad early on, but then I ultimately lost a younger brother to an inbounds avalanche in 2012, and just saw kind of the wake of destruction that his loss of life left for his family, because he had a wife and two kids at the time. So I made the decision to get out because I wanted to focus in on my family. And uh, I kind of tried to reinvent myself and prove that I can do something other than just being a SEAL, and went into real estate. And I think the first 5 years post transition, I just was grinding it out, right? Trying to do my job, do it well, put a lot of time and energy into it. But I think ultimately, what I came to figure out was that I was kind of just numbing with work, and running away from all the stuff that I had compartmentalized very well. And ultimately, it led me to a place that wasn't healthy and wasn't allowing me to be the optimal version of myself for my family. And that probably takes us into a totally different topic of kind of mental health and kind of navigating uh, wellness on multiple fronts. But the transition was just kind of like, hey, I jumped out and went straight into a different career that I knew nothing about, and immersed myself in it.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's touch on that. So you lost your father and then your brother. What stopped you from actually taking a path of destruction?
Um, you know what? I had a job to do still, right? So I lost my dad when I was a brand new guy. My first platoon at SEAL Team 3, my dad, died pretty suddenly of a heart attack at like 63 years old. And, my dad and I were really close. He was the apex role model for me. Um, and, losing him suddenly, like I didn't go on a path of destruction then because I had a job to do, right? I knew, hey, I'm a brand new guy in a SEAL platoon. I got to get back to work and I got to do a good job because it's a high stakes position. And then when I lost my brother Chris in 2012, um, I just saw his family devastated. So I think a commitment to doing my job for my family, uh, and just being committed to doing a good job in the role that I'm in is what kept me from being totally derailed. I mean, I say derailed as in turning to super destructive behavior, right? Like drugs and alcohol. But I'll tell you, Ryan. I mean, I I thought I was doing myself and everyone else a service by just grinding away and trying to be a provider and you know support my family. And ultimately, I was hiding from you know my emotions and frankly just a lot of sadness and grief from losing family members and then losing friends while in service. And I never quite metabolized any of that stuff, and it all came to a head ultimately. So I thought I was doing the job that I was supposed to be doing, but I wasn't really being honest with myself because I've learned that I needed to confront all that stuff in order to be doing my job well as a father and as a husband, um, and a friend.
It shows your character though, because you have the dream job, you're excelling at it really, really well. You're in a position where you could truly lead a huge group of people at some point, and you decided to punch and get out to take care of your family. I mean, it shows everything about your character and how awesome of a human you are. And I always say this too. SEALs, and I always pick on the SEALs because this is the environment that I come from and I know, but we're so good at compartmentalizing, but we're so bad at going back into that box where we've locked everything away and digging through it. and, sorting through it and then becoming and getting to terms with it. So, we'll get more into that piece further on in this show. But for right now, I want to talk a little bit about you're an entrepreneur, and obviously you have Range SD, which we're going to talk about. But before that, let's talk about some of the entrepreneurial spirit that you have. What companies were you a part of in the founding? What have you been a part of? Obviously, we know Protekt, but let's get into everything that you've done since getting out, showing the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I was involved with a uh, kind of a small sunscreen venture, which I stepped away from, but that led to founding Protekt. I would say Protekt was probably the bigger venture, like where I was able to kind of go in and try to build something from the ground up. And I built that with a guy named Tim Duba, who is my brother-in-law, and we built that company. It's still running, and I stepped away from it a couple years ago. Really, just to be honest with myself, I wanted to make sure that I was still staying true to the things that mattered deeply to me, and frankly, that's my family, and it's focusing on being available to be a supportive force for friends and strangers that are walking a path that maybe is similar to mine, where they're struggling and they want to find um, some peace again, right? So I think kind of keeping things simple. I distilled my transition from Protekt um, down to just trying to simplify my life. And I'd always done commercial real estate brokerage, since I got out, and it's something that was familiar. I know how to do it very well. I have a wonderful partner in that venture, and frankly, the freedom and simplicity in that job frees me up to give time freely to some of these things where I'm not earning money, but it fills my cup, as you put it earlier.
Yeah.
Connecting with people, whether they be veterans or uh, non-veterans alike. We all deal with the same struggles as human beings. So if I can take my struggles and kind of my tools that I use to remedy some of those struggles and share them with the world on a kind of a one-on-one basis, I enjoy doing that. And maybe it'll morph into something I guess entrepreneurial in the future, but for the time being, um, it's just been something that
Okay.
I enjoy
Well,
doing.
let's dig into that. So rangesd.com. Tell us about your company. Why did it start? What is the focus point for you guys? What separates you from everybody? Tell us everything we need to know about it.
All right. Well, so in a nutshell, and I don't want to bore the listener base with my commercial real estate rhetoric, but I'd always been a tenant rep broker. So in the commercial real estate world, uh, I'll liken it to the residential real estate world, because everybody thinks, hey, you're a residential broker, right? No, I don't sell houses. I don't list houses. Uh, I represent tenants or buyers. Typically, they're companies that are either leasing space, like occupying lease space, or they're at a point in their existence where purchasing real estate makes more sense for them. And I can go down a tangent with that, but I have taken that position because in our industry there's an inherent conflict of interest. There's a lot of commercial real estate brokers that represent both the owners of real estate and the occupiers of real estate. And if you represent both, you can't do either one well. So staying true to, I guess, my core ethics, I want to do that well. I want to represent my clients well, so I choose to represent occupiers and buyers, um, and that's what I've done. And we, founded Range, and the name Range is indicative of a range of experience that I've had. I've been privileged to accrue, both in the SEAL teams and then outside the SEAL teams through entrepreneurship, that has allowed me to provide a depth of insight via that range of experience to help leverage it on behalf of companies that are negotiating, big lease deals or purchase transactions. Because I feel like I've been privileged to see the inner workings of companies, having founded a few of them, and understanding what it's like to fundraise, what it's like to deal with personnel, what it's like to navigate insurance, and even litigative matters, and be able to take that and try to optimize their real estate like facilities, uh, facet of their company, to allow them to focus on everything else that's important in their venture, to make them successful
So
as a
it's
business.
interesting, right? Because I've got a couple of teammates that actually got out and they got into commercial real estate development. And in Dallas, in Texas, particularly, it was like COVID, and right after COVID, things got really hard for that space. And the same thing applied. It was doing really well in Florida, and then they slowed up, and it's just all kinds of craziness. And one thing that I didn't realize, because I'm not in that space, is that you could go for a year or two, or a couple of years without making a paycheck. And then all of a sudden you get a floodgate. You just got to keep doing it and push, push, push. Is that like what's going on in San Diego right now? Are you guys, how is the commercial real estate environment out there?
Yeah, so this is the reason I like tenant rep brokerage when I went into it, is it's pretty recession proof, in that, if I like it myself to like, an internal member of the company. When I'm brought into the fold, I'm kind of like a chief real estate officer, and companies, regardless of what's going on, are doing something with their footprint. They're either compressing it, expanding it, or trying to optimize their current footprint based on what's going on in their company, and the outside factors that are influencing their business. So we're always going to transact. We're going to do something, and my job, when somebody brings me in, is to help them optimize that decision making process. And the best part about it is, I was saying this earlier to actually another former SEAL, a guy named Dana
Yep.
DeCoster, who I worked for. Dana's a tremendous officer. He's a successful entrepreneur now. Looking to continue to raise money for his company. I told him the best pitch I have as a business owner in range is that my clients don't pay me. In the commercial real estate world, my commission is paid when I transact, and it's paid by the ownership. So the owner of the real estate that my companies are leasing from, uh, or buying, they are the ones that are actually compensating me. So it's kind of it's an easy sell, right? I mean, you can bring somebody in that's an expert. I work on behalf of your team. You don't write me a check, and my job is to optimize your real estate transactions and save you money. So I enjoy that, because I don't know. I guess I'm typically doing a lot of stuff for free. I just like helping people, and at least in my business, I can do that without putting my hand out and asking my client to pay me. I just do a good job, and then they have me represent them, and I get paid ultimately through the owner that
That's
they end up
legit,
leasing
man.
with.
That's legit. Talk to me about your biggest success thus far. What was that one notable thing that either was your first transaction or something that really highlights your career up to this point?
So in commercial real estate, because I have other things I'm like really proud of. But from a professional standpoint, I'll tell you that there was a rather large privately held company here in San Diego that did defense work, or still does defense work. They actually do like a tunable infrared laser. So I thought it was super cool, right? Coming out of the SEAL teams, I actually understood the technology. They were using that technology for missile defense, but also they were doing like for beacons and various applications. And then I think they've expanded into the commercial sector. But I competed for that business as like a really young, like new guy commercial broker, and was able to win it from a pretty seasoned broker here in San Diego that is a tremendous business development guy. And probably been in the industry for 30 years, and as a 3-year broker, I think I won the business, and I've represented them since. They were acquired by a large defense firm, multinational defense firm, and continue to do work for them to this day. And they're a tremendous client. I do. I've worked some very creative commercial real estate deals for them, but I think it was a testament to, like, I built trust and rapport within the C-suite. They truly looked at me as a peer, as opposed to a service provider minion, and respected the opinions that I brought to the table. And you know what it did? It yielded some really creative uh, facility solutions where they were able to get out of a deal that they were locked into because they needed to expand pre-acquisition. And we put them into a brand new building that facilitated more expansion. And then ultimately, when they were acquired, it's now set the stage for them to continue to grow and flourish and do well without having to pick up and move. So I was trying to think multiple steps ahead in their lifespan as an organization. And proof of concept is, that was probably 10 years ago, and we're rocking and rolling. They're doing extremely well, and they're in a building that is going to meet their needs now and probably indefinitely.
That's
So
awesome. What inspires you to do this? What fires you up to do this?
I do, just working with people. I've stopped working with clients because I don't feel like it's the right fit, even if it means I'm walking away from money. Because money isn't the driving force. It's the ability to be a welcome member of their team. And if my uh, opinions and experience are respected and put into application to better the company, that fires me up, right? I always like to be value add. I want to be a contributor. If I'm not doing that, I don't want to be part of the situation. And I've said that with nonprofits that I've helped out. I've had friends that are doing other business pursuits, and just because they like me or we're friends, I don't want anybody to ever just give me something. If I'm not doing something that's going to be accretive to producing value for them, I'd rather just be a friend, right? And help be an advisor on the side. But yeah, when my opinions are valued and I'm a contributing factor to their success, like, that fires me up. I enjoy seeing that, and
It's
when it
awesome,
happens.
man. Have you always, like, did you know from an early age that you were an entrepreneurial type, or did you realize this somewhat exiting service or after that?
Yeah, I all I wanted to be was a Navy SEAL, right? Since like seventh grade, and I think I probably fell into entrepreneurship because I don't know. I work differently. Like, I don't think being pinned down in a bureaucracy is effective for how I'm wired. So I can't go in and sit behind a desk from 9 to 5 every day. Like, I like to have a varied schedule. I like my organizational arrangement is not typical, right? I like to be challenged with new things. Uh, I mean, it's not dissimilar to what we deal with in the SEAL community, right? You're thrown in a situation, you figure it out, and it's
Yeah.
unorthodox at best. So I think I gravitated to entrepreneurship because I appreciate being in those type of chaotic situations, and turning chaos into something that is, like, more organized, and uh, being successful there in that environment kind of just led me down this path. I didn't pursue entrepreneurship because I want to be an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship found me because it's just where I find success. It's where I perform at my
Well,
best.
that's the beauty of it is you can build your team and you can generate revenue based off of effort and performance. And you don't feel like you're filling out a timesheet. You're literally going out every day and grinding because being an entrepreneur is a very difficult thing as well. And feast and famine,
Yep.
man. So, but I see that this is a common theme within the special ops community is most guys get out, even if they don't activate on it, they're all entrepreneurs at heart. They all want to grow something, build something, have ideas. And I consistently tell guys like, hey, move on it. Move on it. It's just your time, not to shine. You're not stopped from the command where you can't actually raise money outside and do other jobs, but now you can. So now's your time. That's
Totally.
legit, dude. Tell me about your greatest day in the SEAL teams.
My greatest day in the SEAL teams, man. I mean, that's a tough one, man. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I feel like the entire time I spent in the SEAL teams was like a
Right.
great day, right? Like any one moment is tough to pin down. Um, I'd say it's probably it's probably the greatest day and the worst day. But probably being selected to take home a fallen brother when I was in Afghanistan. Uh, I've talked about this before. I'm getting a little bit weepy over here, but we lost Brendan Looney on my 2010 Afghan deployment, and to to take Brendan home to his family was probably the biggest honor that I could ever could be bestowed upon me, and maybe it made me proud to wear the trident and be part of our military, right? To be able uh, to do that, small task for somebody that sacrificed everything. So um, that answer wasn't premeditated. You caught me off guard, but truly, I think about that. That's um, I was most proud to be part of our community, being able to do that.
That's something that I've talked about several times is people always ask me like, what was your hardest part of training? And I said, well, training training is what training is. It's going to crush people in certain aspects. But the hardest part about my career was losing a teammate. There's no there's no training for it. There's no pre-planning for it. And for you to be awarded the honor to actually escort him home to his family is an incredible honor, man. And I don't know what that feels like because I didn't do that, but I can only imagine, man. It's it's a very powerful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it, right? I mean, it's the worst thing in the world and the best thing in the world, because that level of sacrifice is something that like you emulate, right? It's a reminder for me that um, I push to my kids, right? I remind them that regardless of all the rhetoric and all the distraction and noise that we have in this world, um, there are things like this that exist, right? There are men out there that are willing to lay their life down uh, for their brothers and for the principles that this country is built on, and we need to be grateful every single day for what opportunities are afforded to us, and not complain and not get wrapped around the axle about small things that are frankly
Right.
inconsequential when it comes down to
Well,
it.
you gave your brother his final swim buddy. That's huge, man. That's absolutely huge. That's legit, man. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I want to get into another
Yeah,
side of the
happy to.
house, which is something that we both share a passion for, something that both of us have done, is psychedelic therapy, psychedelic assisted therapy, and how it's become a very talked about mainstream type thing today. And they're working around the clock to try to get things, approved in Texas and approved nationally for this to help people with different types of traumas. How were you introduced to psychedelic therapy? What was your first go at it? Why did you do it?
Well, I mean, I feel like I stumbled into it. I alluded to the fact that 5 or so years post transition, I was personally struggling because I refused to face my own, uh, I guess,
Yeah.
compartmentalized emotions, and I didn't want to feel sadness or grief. I just ignored it. So I wasn't doing very well, and I was trying to find a solution as opposed to a band-aid to address the apathy that I was feeling. And randomly, and I don't know, I've heard other people kind of having a similar um, introduction. I was introduced randomly. Like I ran into probably 3 or 4 teammates um, at very random times in very random places that all had uh, gone down and were afforded the opportunity to sit with a psychedelic and catalyzed a whole bunch of change in their lives. And they shared all this stuff with me. I mean, unsolicited, and it got me interested. I was curious because I was trying to figure it out. You know, I had tried transcranial magnetic stimulation as a method to help. I never had turned to pharmaceuticals like antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds. I just did. For me, it felt like it was more of a
Yeah.
band-aid temp fix. And the thing I think that really, was the tipping point was seeing a guy that I'm really close friends with, that I served with on the West Coast and lost touch with for a while. I saw him come back, and I saw the ground zero change. Like, I knew what he was like before. I saw him come back post Ibogaine, and he was just a different person. He was just, you could see it was tangible. You could see it in his eyes, his demeanor, the way that he spoke, and articulated kind of how he was feeling and the differences. And that was enough for me. I mean, it was proof of concept, right? You see somebody like that firsthand. I was ready to try something. So that allowed me to be introduced to uh, Dr. Martin Polanco, who had started Mission Within, and Mission Within, was an Ibogaine clinic that he had started for addiction down in Mexico. Or he had started an Ibogaine clinic for addiction. Ultimately, it became Mission Within when he had a couple veterans go through the clinic for opiate addiction, and they ended up feeling a lot of relief from their, yeah, they call it PTSD or whatever, but just their over compartmentalization that allowed them to be good veterans or good service members. They felt a ton of relief in that capacity from that specific psychedelic therapy. And then he dedicated a bunch of time and energy to focusing on the veteran community. So I was introduced to Martine. Ultimately, took Ibogaine and sat with 5-MeO DMT. Never had an experience with psychedelics before. Never used an illicit drug. I mean, I tell people I never even smoked a cigarette or dipped or chewed tobacco. So it was a massive catalyst for change in my life. And then, and since then, I will tell you, like, it is just that, right? It's a powerful tool that can catalyze change, but it's opened the aperture for me to do the hard work on a daily basis. And the hard work is, living a life that's committed to gratitude and self-reflection. And that can come in the form of prayer and meditation, connection with people, being connected and open and honest with myself. And, kind of just doing that work day in, day out. But, I point at psychedelics as being a very powerful tool to catalyze that type of change. Because for some people, you know, the more traditional methods, right, therapy, or any other means that people are trying to get to that healthier place, sometimes it's just not
Yeah.
enough, right? You can spin your wheels for decades, and during that period of time, your family's falling apart, maybe you're falling victim to addiction, and you can go through something that is a single weekend retreat, 2, 3, 4 days, and it gives you perspective on all of the things that you're stumbling on, and allows you to see beyond that, and then start to galvanize the change in your life. Because we come from a community, just speak from to this, SEAL community. We're extremely disciplined, right? So all I needed was that new perspective. I needed my eyes open and the veil lifted, and then I can apply those things on a daily basis that are going to help me get to that place and stay in that place
Hmm.
permanently. And it's not taking psychedelics every day. It's doing the hard work, right? And finding a deeper relationship, with God. I, I can go there. Like it opened me up from a spiritual standpoint in a way that I've never been open. I grew up Roman Catholic, and was part of the church, but I never really had the intimate personal relationship with God. And you can put a name on God. You can call it God, spirit, whatever. It it changed after that. I feel like I've really developed something that's special that I touch every single day, and I spend a lot of time every single morning in self reflection and prayer, uh, to really help me to be the happiest, healthiest version
Yeah,
of
man.
myself.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's one of these things I say to guys because, man, it's funny how we all go from this kind of same standpoint where, like, I go from doing nothing to doing one of the most powerful psychedelics in mankind, or two of them when you do 5-MeO as well. And it's terrifying. But I always say to guys, like, how long are you willing to live in discomfort before you're ready to step up and make a change in your life? And psychedelics, unlike other therapies and medicines and that are band-aids, this isn't a band-aid. And what I always say to guys that are struggling on the fence or whatever, I said, dude, this is a pause. Like this, there's no better thing in the world than these particular medicines for the pause button of the chaotic spiral of your life. Whether you have an addiction issue or you're having true trauma stress and you can't get out of it and you're ruminating over the stuff that's going wrong and you can't get out of your own way, this is a massive pause button. And then they give you the true understanding of how you can work this afterwards to live in your normal life, like opiate and any kind of thing free. Like case in point, I went out there, I had sobered up years ago before I went to this, but I went out there, I came back, and after about a month of being back, my wife's like, "Are you ever going to drink coffee with me again?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like it stopped me from drinking coffee, and I was having a cup a day. So I'm like, this, it's so powerful how it just pauses the stuff that you've built into your mechanism to do every day, thinking that this is going to help you when ultimately you're putting band-aids on top of the wound. So it pauses you to see the real reality of what you have created for yourself and what you're going through, and then the tools on how to fix it and work on it daily. And it's just like life, man. Every day you work towards that greater good. You may not achieve everything you want in a day, but you're getting closer every single day. So this is awesome, man. So you went and did Ibogaine and 5-MeO in Mexico. You came back. What was that first couple weeks like being back?
I mean, tremendous, man. I mean, I focused a lot of time doing the preparation, right? Because I took it seriously. I had heard it wasn't a fun or easy experience. So it took it took a lot of preparation, just so I felt like I was ready for it. And I think because I put all that time and energy into kind of the prep on the front end, I had an extremely good outcome. I mean, it changed me overnight. I mean, it kind of crazy. Like uh, I feel like I had a sense of knowing like how good my life is, how much I do have going for me, how much I have to be grateful for, um, recognizing the joy in the simple things that are around me all the time that I was taking for
Yeah.
granted. And I mean, just that perspective shift, it made me a happier person. I mean, I started I felt like I was comfortable feeling emotions that I wasn't comfortable feeling before. And the ability to feel emotion is probably the biggest takeaway, right? I mean, I was able to metabolize a lot of emotion that I didn't allow myself to feel before. And it kind of like purged that weight that I was carrying, and it's made me a lighter, happier version of myself. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I still have my struggles, right? I still get frustrated and angry, and feel downtrodden or sad
Yeah.
periodically, because that's life,
Yep.
right? I'm not sitting in a cave someplace, insulated from stress. But I very quickly am able to kind of gain awareness of how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way, and then take control of the situation and and find solutions, right? Not just be a victim, but be proactive the way that we are when we're in service. So it's just allowed me to kind of take that same tenacity to problem solve that I was used to in the SEAL teams and apply it to my personal life and my own, mental health and just that my mental wellness, my spiritual wellness. Because that's the thing that like I probably ignored for most of my young life is I focused on the physical,
Yep.
right? And I focused on like a different mental toughness. Like I focused on just grit, right? And grit and tenacity and resilience came through compartmentalization whereas this is more of just being like, okay, I need to kind of exercise, my mind and train that the way that I train my body. And that was probably like since psychedelics, I'm committed to daily meditation, and it changes. It looks different, as the years go on, but it's a like a no fail initiative for me. Like I don't care where I'm at, what I'm doing. If I'm on a plane, I'm on vacation, I'm working, I'm stressed, not stressed. Like I make time to go through contemplative practice in the morning.
That's legit, man. What what is like your focal point now? Going through it, having this insane, change in your system, being able to be honest with yourself, which never said you weren't honest beforehand, but for me, it gave me the opportunity to be honest with myself. And we feel like we want to do more to help others because we've been blessed with this. What are you doing now in the psychedelic space for others?
I think that the thing that is most impactful in that space is just being able to connect with people one on one. I mean, I'm not even looking for it. It's just I'm very comfortable with who I am. I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not, and I'm very open. And it's this intuitive feeling that I'm way more dialed into now that I think I had kind of ignored or suppressed in the past. If I'm talking to somebody, I'm going to grab coffee with somebody or I meet somebody uh, while I'm traveling, and and I'm a pretty affable guy. I like to start conversations. It's just how I'm wired. I get a feeling sometimes like where like it'll just come up and I'll go deep pretty fast and kind of share things in conversations that beget vulnerability from the other person. And then I wherever the conversations goes, I like to be able to share my experiences and just be there to listen to people. And I've noticed that's the thing that fulfills me more than anything else is that it's those one-on-one personal interactions, right? Um, it's not necessarily sitting on a board or fundraising for a nonprofit or putting an event together. For me, it's the message I get on Instagram or via text or a phone call um, with somebody that just wants to chat. And maybe they're curious about psychedelics, or maybe they're just curious about you know other things that have helped me along my path. Namely like meditation or navigating stress through any number of practices. So I don't know. I think that person to person connection is where I see the most impact.
No question about it, man. I mean, you're helping forward people to make their decisions to go do it. It's a tough thing too because you take on the responsibility of helping somebody who might not be in a really good place, and if you help them get to that path, that can have an extraordinary outcome, and you are a part of that. So that feels really awesome to be that helping hand, that because you've experienced it. Or you could sit on the fence and do nothing and let them just struggle, which is all too common with, for a long time, guys didn't know what to do. Like, you're struggling, that sucks, man. I don't know what to do to help. It really sucks. But to be able to have a place now where, people are like, oh man, this is my last shot if this doesn't work. And I'm like, no, that's bullshit. You can't think about it in terms like that, man. So you're on a path right now, and we got to get you off that path and on another one, but that can be done. but you got to be willing to commit and do the work. And man, it's, I always say this, when, for people who have a problem with opiates or drinking or whatever, when they sober up, there's a point in time where they're like, man, this is really rough. And then there's a point in time after that where they're like, man, I feel so good that I've got it behind me. And then there'll be another phase where they're like, man, I sure wish I could use, or I'm just not in a good spot. But all of a sudden they'll realize 6 months down the line, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, that they become bomb proof and that it's not a thought anymore.
Yeah.
And they're way past that point of wanting to go back. Even if they know it because they have a trigger that pops up, they're like, been there, done that, not interested anymore. And that empowerment is amazing. And so I find that too, because people know that I've done psychedelics, and so they come to me and they ask questions, and I get very real. But you got to be
Yeah.
smart on how you articulate it, because when I was introduced to it, guys are like, "Dude, when you do 5-MeO, you just got to surrender and you'll die, and then everything is from there on." And I'm like, "What? I'm not doing any of that crap. That's no way." So it's
Yeah.
definitely a
Yeah, you can't even articulate it, right? Everybody's experience is different with it, but it's, I mean, hey, it's very personal. Um, and I think what I try to share is that it's just a very powerful catalyst for change. So if you're interested in change, uh, in a good way, it's worth giving a shot. And I still like to stick to doing hard things as a just a way to live, right? Like you do hard things, and then you kind of you earn the dopamine that you get,
right.
right? And for me, psychedelic therapy was doing a hard thing. It was doing one of the hardest things. So it wasn't a fun ride. It's a very difficult experience, but doing hard things yield growth, and that's what I'm looking for. So I try to find hard things to do in my life, and the stuff changes. Like physically, what's hard to me now might not have been hard to me 20 years ago, but continuing to challenge myself and put myself in situations that are difficult is the only way I'm going to continue to evolve.
Yeah, man. Well, doing this hard, this is super hard stuff. And people don't understand that these particular medicines are not party favors. You don't do this at a party. You don't go to have fun with this. You're coming to do work to actually get more in tune with yourself and find your love for yourself again. Um, and I love that Trevor Miller, who is co-founder in Ambio, become a really good friend. And he said it best when I was first going through. He's specifically talking about Ibogaine, but he said, you know what? You will not find a better medicine out there that is more benevolent towards the recipient. And so, whatever you may be dealing with, it's going to meet you there. And it was just incredible because it was 100% accurate. And every single human in the world with enough time under their belt has some type of stress or trauma. Couple
Totally.
that in with the military side, the special operations side. We joined at the right time where we were going to war, and we got a whole bunch of it. And so it's just awesome that we have this now in our tool bag to actually utilize. So what charities are you working with these days? Who you're promoting? Who are you sitting on the board of to help so we can give them some love?
Yeah, I mean, Mission Within Foundation is basically helping veterans, go through and explore psychedelic assisted therapy. So uh, they're great, and it it crosses beyond just helping special operations veterans. Mission Within right now is focused. Uh, they're agnostic really to service, but they're doing a lot of work with Marine
Hmm.
Corps combat veterans, which is it's important to me, Ryan, because uh, both of my deployments, Iraq and Afghanistan, I was in service with some of the most heroic warriors I've ever met, and they came from the Marine Corps and Army infantry units, and they were doing thankless jobs with a lot less support and far
Yep.
fewer resources. So that's I had a soft spot. I had spent multiple years on the Vets Board, which is focused on special operations veterans and psychedelics. And helping out Mission Within Foundation just seemed like the right move. Though I'm not I always label myself as probably not the best board member because I'm not ultra high net worth and I don't have the networks that help you raise the big bucks for a charity. But I care about it. So yeah, that's one. Another one that I think is super cool is Project Restore Hope that a buddy of mine, Guy McDermott, who's a
I know, guy.
retired SEAL, prior enlisted, yeah, became an officer, so he's a Mustang, and he was a firefighter, and Guy is now heading that up with a lady named Melissa Love, who runs a foundation called the Mosaic Foundation, that's doing some really cool stuff with our brothers over at Development Group, and Project Restore Hope is focused on transitioning VFW posts into places of healing as opposed to, what historically VFWs have been the bar you go
Right.
to as a veteran, right? You go there, you drink, you hang out. Camaraderie is great and the connection's great, but the spin is now they want to be a hub to connect guys with uh, modalities that can help them be a better version of themselves. So whether that's uh, tissue therapy, access to talk therapy, being able to connect with their brothers, if psychedelics are the right move to catalyze change, meditation, all these things that are the multimodal approach to getting better and being a better version of yourself. They want to make VFWs the hub for that. So they're starting that with a kind of a beta in Solana Beach at the Solana Beach VFW, and then the hope is that they kind of expand that more nationally, and then allow those VFWs to kind of find the other nonprofits that provide all these resources, and then become a kind of a central hub and resource to be able to push their VFW membership to all these great resources.
Wow.
So cool concept. They're in their infancy, but I think that's just such a good move because being in the nonprofit space, I've noticed how much competition there is and infighting, and to try to be a hub and utilize an organization that has physical real estate already there, a place for people to come and
Yep.
gather and connect. Um, if you can there's so many great nonprofits out there. Let's just point guys to, don't try to reinvent the wheel and create another nonprofit that provides this one singular thing, because there's no one singular thing that's the panacea and solution to help everybody. You got everybody's different. Some people may need hormone therapy to help them out, and some people might need psychedelics. Some people might just need traditional talk therapy. Who knows? So to be a resource to be able to direct them is something I think is really
That's legit,
powerful.
man. How many times have you done psychedelic therapy now?
So I've only done Ibogaine once, and I've sat with 5-MeO probably 4 or 5 times. And it's been spread out over 12 to 18 months, like between experiences, and frankly, it was really kind of just like a
Yeah.
check-in for me. I see it as doing a hard thing, right? I don't look forward to it. I definitely
It's
get
so hard.
nervous, and fear creeps in for sure. Uh, but you know what? It really anchors me. It anchors me in the present. It's a sense of remembering what's important and washing away a lot of the distraction and the noise, and it keeps me on the path, right? So um, until I see it not pointing me down a path that's bettering me as a human being, and not making me a version of myself that is easier to be around and more loving. I'll I'll probably go back to it every now and then.
Yeah.
For the rest of my
I'm
life.
with you, man. I mean, kind of a funny subject on that was, of course, when I told my parents that I was going to go do it, both of them were like, huh? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, you don't understand. Just know that I'm doing this for me to better myself. And I've I've sat with it for a long time, and I've thought about it, and this is the time. And when I came back, my dad's like, "So, are you a hippie now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude. I got the shaggy carpet installed last week. Mirrored ball comes in next week. Hacky sack in pocket. Black lights and posters coming in pretty quickly." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "No, dude. It doesn't affect anything that I needed, that I didn't want touched. Like, it doesn't mess with my religion and my support for Christ.
Yeah.
It's anti-addictive medicines, which is absolutely awesome for somebody like me who likes to take everything to the highest level. Um, but what it did for me is it made me love myself, and that was everything that I was missing, and everything that I needed is I love myself.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell everybody now. I was like, that's the simplest way to describe it, is like, yes, you're going to pause yourself from your chaos, but do you want to love yourself again? Because if I ask the question to everybody, like, do you love yourself? They're all like, all right, no, I'm being honest. No. Well, that's a problem. So let's find that. So,
Yeah. How do you love anybody else if you
right,
can't love
man.
yourself? So
Yeah,
you hit the
man.
nail on the head. That's the main takeaway, right? It helps you love yourself the way that you should, so you can love everybody else with the same
100%,
intensity.
man. We've gone through a little bit of everything of what you got going on since getting out. You have your company Range, and you're doing commercial real estate development in California. You also are a big supporter of psychedelic therapy with multiple different charities and missions out there, and helping people, guiding them to taking their first step into it. What have we not touched on? What do you want people to know? And how can the viewers get behind you and help you?
Oh man. I mean, like I'd say the way people can help me is just by being a better version of yourself, right? Like connect with your friends. You know, don't be don't be ashamed to be vulnerable. Be open and honest and vulnerable, and have more genuine, authentic communication with the people that are around you. I mean, if everybody started doing that, I mean, I think we'd solve a lot of problems. Uh, I'm always here as a resource. You asked me how people can help me. I mean, I'd like to know how I can help other people, and I've always put myself out there. Typically people will, even though I'm not on Instagram all that much, people will message me on Instagram, and if I see a message, even if I haven't been on there for a while, uh, your message, case in point, I wasn't on Instagram, but for randomly like a week ago, and
Yeah.
we reconnected. So I see that stuff, and I love when I do see those type of messages or people reaching out, asking questions or looking for help. Um, I make a point of taking them seriously and connecting. So I love that. And then, yeah, man, I mean, I don't, I'm just trying to live a life of authentic, genuine relationships now. Right. If I can't go deep with someone, and I can't feel comfortable, and I'm not in a situation that's free of judgment and hate and all the stuff that is more typical in this world, then I'm not really interested. So I've parried down a lot of my relationships because I want to focus on the ones that um, I should be focused on, right? I think we spend a lot of time on everything else but those relationships that are easy, right? Like our family, like my wife and my kids, they love me unconditionally. And for a lot of years, I don't think I was reciprocating with the intensity that I was giving to other people and other relationships. And a lot of those relationships weren't even relationships that were giving me even a fraction of that energy back. And I've now learned to kind of give to those relationships that have been very giving to me, um, because they
It's
deserve it.
fascinating you say that. It's something we always do, right? Is that these relationships are here, they're not going anywhere. Family, close brothers, friends, and so we're like, we're good. No time is too far away in distance for us to still communicate and have chat. And then you're doing so much work in the business side, talking with people, some good, some in between, and then some turds. And you're like, man, I'm devoting more time to the people that I don't want to associate with than the people that, you know, fills my cup every time I chat with them. And I made this realization a couple years ago and did the same thing where I've slimmed down, who am I calling on a constant basis? Who am I devoting my energy and effort into? That way I know I can make change within that logical list instead of trying to help the entire world. But there is always somebody who comes down the pipe that needs your help, whether you're friends or not. And you're just like, got it. I can help you. I'm going to do it. So that's awesome, man. Well, we've gone through a little bit here in the hour, and I want to finish off on this one because this is the quintessential question I ask everybody that seems to hang everybody up, as it should. Who is your hero and why?
I mean, my hero. I mean, it's easy for me. My dad was and is my hero. You know, he's the one I emulated. He's larger than life. He taught me how to be the man that I am today. And to be very honest with you, when I took Ibogaine, and if you don't know, with Ibogaine, it's a really interesting experience in that they actually tell you to kind of write down questions that you want to have answered. Um, and one of the questions that I asked was, would would my dad be proud of the way that I'm raising my kids? And and in that experience, I was given an opportunity to really see that he is proud of me because I was shown an very weird, right? But I had like memory recall from being a kid and from a third person perspective, so it was really out there. But it was me running through my house that I grew up in, and my dad was a firefighter, so he would, uh, he'd be at work all for 24 hours, shift work, and then he'd come back early morning, like 6 7 a.m. And I would run to the door, and I had a memory of running to the door and opening up the front door, and I saw everything in kind of like granular detail in my house I grew up in. And I didn't even this is a memory I didn't even think I had. And I opened the door, and it's like, I'd always open the door. My dad would be there, and he'd put this leather gym bag down. I'd give him a hug, and I remember how he smelled and what he looked like. And as soon as I opened that door in this memory, I got thrust back into my body, my perspective of me coming up home to my door and opening up my front door, and my kids running in and giving me a hug. And it was validation, right, for me to see that, like, no, I know how much I love my dad. My dad was larger than life, and my kids look up to me the same way. So it was like this beautiful affirmation of uh, maybe me hopefully being a hero to my kids the way that my dad was a hero to me. So yeah, I'm on that question, brother. Like it's one that I've thought about often, and there's some
Yeah,
depth
I
to it.
love that, man. Well, there's no doubt that you are your children's first hero. No question about it, man. And it's an incredible responsibility, man. Like I always tell people that, we are blessed to serve in the SEAL teams. We got to be leaders at certain points. You obviously got to be a different leader than me, a little bit higher level. But ultimately, we all get to be these leaders for a period of time.
Totally.
But then when you have children, it's a leadership for life. It is the most demanding, hardest, rewarding job out there. And I had this conflict with myself for many years because I said, people ask me what I do, and I'm an entrepreneur and I have multiple things going on at once. And I'm like, how do I pack all this into an elevator story to tell people what I do? And I just stopped and I was like, you know what? I'm a dad. Like I have work, but I'm a dad. That's my job. And, I consistently tell myself looking in the mirror that I'm failing at it because there's always changes. They're getting older and they're going through different types of growing pains and that. But how blessed are we? And that's why I went and did
Yeah.
psychedelic therapies, because what you said earlier about the being present and those little things in life, I was missing all that. And it's
Yeah. Yeah, you do it for them, bro. Like that perspective shift. I mean, thank you for saying that, because that's, I think I started this conversation saying I just wanted to I knew my role and I wanted to do my job well. You know what? Psychedelics helped me change in a positive way to do my job as a father better and be a better role model
yeah.
for my kids. because they deserve it. That's my job.
You're 100% right, dude. It's legit. Yeah, well, I'm not going to be chasing you in a race or a pull-up competition anytime soon. I can promise you that, but I'm always going to have your back, and I'm proud to know you, brother. And you keep inspiring
Likewise, bro.
people like you do me. And yeah, I'm just grateful for everything that you've done for us and for this country. And just everybody, if you're watching, obviously he's not much on Instagram, but does have an Instagram account. So go follow his Instagram page. We'll post it up. Make sure to go check out his company, rangesd.com. That's rangesd.com. And if you have any questions pertaining to psychedelic therapy or want somebody to chat to, obviously I'm not pushing to overload your inbox, but if you're serious about it or you are in a bad place, you can either reach out to myself or Nick, and we'll try to help you through your path to making that call towards the betterment of your life. Brother, I'm super grateful for you being on this show, and anytime you want, any new updates you have, come on back.
Frogman Friday. Long live the brotherhood.